So the second big trend, ebooks are going global. Now to understand the significance here, let's talk a little bit about the print market. Print books are heavy and bulky. They're expensive to produce with all that paper, ink, and glue. They're expensive to box, ship, unpack, and stock at stores. That retailer shelf space is expensive. The retailer pays a lot of money for that space. It's simply not economically feasible for publishers to make print books available everywhere, especially in countries outside the United States. Outside a couple large Western developed countries, you're not going to find the same selection of books because it's impractical, and for many of those consumers, books are unaffordable, print books, to everyone except for the upper class. So as a result, publishers typically only publish and distribute a few print books, and they only within a few countries. With ebooks, the opportunity is different. Ebooks are digital, they're just bits and bytes. They're cheap to duplicate and distribute to every corner of the globe. It doesn't cost anything to transmit an ebook across the globe. It doesn't cost anything to store an ebook on a digital shelf. So in short, ebooks overcome many of the economic and logistical limitations of print. Ebooks make it possible for your books to reach every corner of the globe. There are billions of consumers now walking around with smartphones in their pockets. These smartphones put them just a couple clicks away from your books. So this is really a game changer. And the major ebook retailers are expanding internationally. Apple iBooks is in 51 different countries. Apple is the world's second largest global seller of ebooks. Amazon's operating in about 100 different countries. Kobo, a mid-sized retailer, is at about 160. And even at Smashwords, we operate our own small store. We sell into about 200 different countries. Anyone with a credit card and internet access. And here's an interesting data point. Although our books are probably 98–99% English language, close to 35–40% of our sales are outside the United States. And I know a lot of authors, we think about, we want to publish our book and we think about the US market as the largest market. It is, but the UK is a large market, Australia, Canada, and every single day our authors are selling books into Japan and Norway, Sweden, all these non-English speaking countries where they do read and purchase English. So it's easy for you to reach this global market with your English language books. All you have to do is make sure your books are available at all the major retailers, and then the retailers will take you with them as they expand globally. The third trend is the democratization of publishing. 10 years ago, it's a period of time I refer to as the dark ages in publishing. Publishing was entirely a print-centric business. Publishers controlled access to the printing press, they controlled access to retail distribution, and they also controlled the knowledge necessary for professional publishing, the best practices knowledge, the decades, centuries of institutionalized knowledge for what it takes to professionally publish a book. So in short, publishers controlled the fate of writers. They were the bouncers at the pearly gates of authordom. If you couldn't get a publisher to say yes to you, you were a failed writer. Now, publishers judge books based on perceived commercial merit. And due to the high cost of publishing, they can only afford to acquire the books that they think are going to sell. And if they don't think your book is going to sell a lot of copies, they're not going to take a chance on it. This meant that publishers were artificially constraining the supply of books. It meant that thousands, hundreds of thousands of books were going to the grave with the author unpublished, including books that would have gone on to become cultural classics if only given the chance. For many of you, you're writing books that probably won't be appreciated for many years to come. Maybe your book will be discovered as the new classic 100 years from now. But if you didn't have a chance to publish your book, then your book would never be available for those readers to discover. It meant that humanity lost access to these thousands of cultural classics. If you think about it, there are many, many incredible books that we'll never get to read, simply because the publishing industry was unable to say yes to those writers. It also meant that publishers were deciding what readers could read. Today, thanks to the rise of ebooks, the tools of professional publishing are available to every writer. So the printing press is now democratized. You've got free publishing tools like the Smashwords platform or like Amazon KDP that make it possible for you to self-publish an ebook at no cost and have your book judged directly by readers. The retail distribution system has become democratized. All of those retailers with their expensive shelf space that couldn't afford to stock every book under the sun can now stock every book under the sun on their digital shelves. Every major retailer wants to carry every self-published ebook. Even if your book doesn't sell a single copy in a year, your book's not going to go out of print. The retailer will still carry that book because the retailers they understand that their customers appreciate diversity and selection. The best practices knowledge of professional publishing has become democratized. Knowledge is what separates amateurs from professionals. So publishers are losing the monopoly that they once had. Writers no longer need publishers to reach readers. And this has caused writers to ask a few dangerous questions if you're standing in the shoes of a publisher. First question is, do I need a publisher? The second question is, what can a publisher do for me that I can't already do for myself? And the third question, and this is even a more dangerous question, is that many authors are asking, is that will it actually harm my ability to reach readers if I work with a publisher? Because publishers tend to price their books a lot higher than self-published authors do. Anytime you price a product higher, you make it less accessible, less desirable to customers. So what happens when writers everywhere are given access to free tools, free distribution, and free best practices knowledge? And more importantly, what happens when writers are given the freedom to self-publish like a pro? That spawned our next trend. Trend 4 is the rise of indie authorship. So if you're new to this term, indie author, a quick definition is in order. Indie stands for independent. Indie authors are self-published authors. So indie and self-published mean the same thing. Over the last 10 years, hundreds of thousands of writers have self-published ebooks. And we're still in the very early days of this revolution. In fact, it's a global cultural movement. A few years ago, I attempted to describe this global cultural movement. I published something at the Smashwords blog called the Indie Author Manifesto. And if you go to Google, you can Google it and you'll find it, Indie Author Manifesto. When I published the manifesto, this was my attempt to really capture the ethos, the driving force behind the indie author movement. And I found inspiration from other great manifestos like the U.S. Declaration of Independence, Martin Luther's 95 Theses, and even the Bible's 10 Commandments. And when I published the manifesto, the reactions were mixed. Among self-published authors, they loved it. Many of them said they were going to print it out and stick it on their wall as a reminder of why they were writing. But there are others in the industry that were offended by it and found it profoundly upsetting. And the reason I think they found it upsetting is because in the manifesto I talk about how all writers are equal, that we all have potential in us, and that we all have a right to publish books. This is still a really radical idea that every one of you has a right to publish a book. So some people in the industry considered the manifesto as anti-publisher, but it's not anti-publisher if you read it. I'm a huge supporter of self-publishing, but I love traditional publishing as well. I think we're all better off by having more options, not fewer options. And each option benefits the other. So I think from this day forward, all authors are indie authors. Today, you can start writing a book, and with 100% assurance, you will know that one way or another, your book will see the light of day, whether you work with a traditional publisher or you choose to self-publish. You didn't have this option 10 years ago. You have multiple publishing options. You can choose to self-publish, you can choose to traditionally publish, or you can do both. Many of the most successful authors are what are called hybrid authors. They work with a traditional publisher on some projects, and they self-publish other projects. So you choose what's right for you.